Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our D2C Learning Lounge. We are going to get started in just a second.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Our first session of the second part is there's Gen X, Gen Y, and now Gen L, the lead generation. And I would like to introduce our presenter, Brendan Condon, CEO of REVShare. Thank you.
Woo! Give it up. Hey, everybody. Thanks for your time. I know this is a crazy time in terms of what's all going around on the floor, but I thought that there was something so important that I'd love to share it with you, and thanks for that opportunity in advance. So it's really about, we all know Gen X. I think we know Gen Y. I'm calling this new one Gen L, the lead generation. And I want to talk a little bit today in 12 minutes or less. That was the rules that I was given. A little bit about what Gen L means. And first and foremost, I think it's important to get a sense of what Gen X is, what Gen Y is. We all have preconceived notions, but they're different, right? They may look somewhat the same, but they're different. And I thought it'd be good to quickly review what we see as it relates to Gen X and Gen Y today. Because when they were first named, they were far different than what they really are today. In terms of age group, would you have guessed that Gen X is 35 plus? I keep thinking of Gen X as 20-somethings. If you think about the amount of folks that are Gen X in terms of population, there's over 50 million Gen Xers out there today. These are guys and gals who are self-reliant. They reject all the rules. They really don't care. They grew up in such an environment. They were latchkey kids who were either single children, and they kind of did what they had to because they were doing it on their own. So they grew up relatively quickly and had a bit of a carefree attitude. Their friends are not their family. And what I mean by that, and what's important when you think about messaging to this kind of audience, that their friends are virtually anybody else but their family. Their family, they discreetly separate from their friends. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how that differs in Gen L. But for Gen Y, I just thought I'd bring that up. These are folks born between 77 and 89. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. They are 50% larger than the Gen X population. So you see this growth in the population, which is really important, because as marketers, you want to think about scale and reaching volume. These guys and gals, they love diversity. They love the idea that everything is unique. They grew up in that environment. They're optimistic and they're realistic. And why is that? Because they've seen it all. They've seen it through technology. They've seen it in terms of exposure through media and entertainment and the like. These are guys who rewrote the rules. They decided, hey, I want to start my own company. I don't have to wait to be 20 years in the business and then have this natural progression. I'm just going to do that today because that's what I want to do, and I can do that. In terms of multitasking, they're fast and furious. A lot of us, I think, in this room and at this conference think we're pretty good juggling media and the consumption thereof. These guys do that on what I call steroids. It's just amazing how quickly and effectively they can do that. They assume that technology is the normal. They don't know anything else. They have never seen anything happen so quickly or happen so differently from where they've grown up from. And this morning we were talking about the future of television in the general session, and the key for a lot of folks was saying that linear television is going to be around. I beg to differ. The audience, these guys in Gen Y, they don't care. They don't really have never seen linear television. They're all about over-the-box and addressable television. These guys, their friends are their family. These are the folks who consider anyone who they can socially engage with, whether it's electronically or technologically, almost on the same playing field as their brothers and sisters, parents, and the like. So that's just to give you a framework of Gen X and Gen Y. Now, if you think about Gen L, that's what I call the lead generation. They span a host of different demographics, and these are the folks who you'll see in the next couple of slides are really important to you as marketers, and messaging to them is crucial for you to be successful in terms of getting their engagement. They run the spectrum. They need your product and service. These guys are sophisticated consumers of media, and they look at products and they look at services, and they have these incredibly high expectations, and they will purchase just like that if you do the right thing in terms of messaging to them. And the key for them is whatever the product and service that you're offering, there has to be quality. There has to be a value such that they recognize that's something I want, and I want it today. But they have criteria that go with those desires and wants. They think about, is that product or is that service local? Is it made in the U.S.? Because if it's not, I don't know if I want to be associated with that. Is it green? all this ecological environment in terms of thinking, is it built the right way? Is it made the right way? So that I can be proud when I talk to friends and family about that, hey, it is ecologically viable, the carbon footprint and the like. The other thing is timelessness. These guys and gals, they're thinking about the product they're buying and worrying, is it something that I have to buy again and 6 months later and another 6 months later? And I've talked to a lot of folks in the consumer electronics industry, and they get really excited about the latest releases in their new televisions and their new technologies and new capabilities, and yet on the same hand, they're saying they're worried about their consumers getting fed up with the new releases and the price points changing dramatically. Suddenly that they're saying, well, I'm not going to buy anything new anymore, I'm just going to stick with what I have. These folks will do the same exact thing if it has value, if it's essential to them. In terms of who they are, they're any age, they're any sex, the demographics run the gamut. But the key for us as marketers is not to think of them as a whole. You have to be able to segment them and message to them uniquely and discreetly, because they all speak a different language. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how they receive messages and how the media that they're engaging with differs. If you think about their expectations, these folks have seen a lot. You better have a compelling message for from these marketers to these consumers, because otherwise they're not going to listen. They will tune you out in a second. I like to think of them as having the attention span of a fly. If you can't get a message to them that engages them, thanks, no thanks, they're going to fly off and do something else. So, probably thinking about what's the best way to reach these types of folks. There's multiple ways to reach them. If you think about Gen L, lead generation, it's knowing their media mix. Listed up here are the traditional media mixes that are out there today. No surprises to anybody in this room, anybody at this conference. The key is recognizing across these different media which ones each of these different Generation L folks engage most with and interact most with. And if it's singular, it's relatively easy. But nobody singularly looks at one medium. They're always looking at multimedia. So you need to think about creating a 360-degree message, combining whatever variation and theme across these makes sense and is continuous and kind of flows in a sequential manner to these consumers. Look at the first what I call the seniors within Generation L. I like to define them all. They're all leads, right? These are all folks that you want to reach in some way or some manner. The Generation L folks that are seniors, 50 plus, they're not comfortable with change. And this is really important when you think about what you're trying to do in message to these consumers. They need specific and clear directives. They need to absolutely understand what it is that the product and service that you're offering to them so that they can react to this. And I say this respectfully. A lot of us over here, look around the room, are close to 50 or maybe even over 50. Let's confess, we do need that clarity. If something is too jumbled or happening too quickly, I get confused, I kind of shut it down, I'm not going to admit I understand what's happening. I think about the call to action, boy, it better be simple. I don't have the time or the patience or the wherewithal or know-how to engage. So if you don't keep it simple for me, I'm not going to act. In terms of the media, they listen to the radio. They'll engage with what's happening with the voice message coming from the radio. They love the print medium, whether it's magazines, Sunday supplements, all the way through to newspapers and inserts. Television is key. They spend an amazing amount of time on television. In terms of engaging these consumers, these 50-plus Generation L folks, the best device is an 800 number. And I didn't say a toll-free number. The 866s, the 877s, they're nowhere near as effective as 800 numbers. These guys grew up in this mindset of thinking about 800. That's really easy to dial. If you get too cute and too creative, it's not going to work for them. They won't effectively engage. This is the key that I want to stress in terms of this audience. It's one thing to have a great message, have a great media buy, and then these folks that get so engaged, they pick up the phone and they call. They're looking at your fulfillment house or your service center, whatever it may be. Boy, they better be prepared to deal with this audience. Because if they're not going to make the sale. They're not going to convert. So it's one thing to get the call, it's another thing to convert them. And if you don't have a staff that is trained and prepared to talk to these folks slowly, deliberately, and in such a way that they feel very comfortable sharing that, hey, they have a health issue. They need a product or service. They have a financial issue. They need somebody who they can look at and say, or talk to and feel very comfortable expressing those needs and desires. Otherwise, they'll just hang up, they'll talk to two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and suddenly that demographic is not engaging with your product or service. Why? Because you just made it too hard for them. You got to keep it simple, incredibly simple. And that's hard to do. You've got to do it, though, otherwise it's not going to work. We've seen it time and time in town. When you think about REVShare, which is the country's largest CPA advertising network, we're dealing, and our business model is based on reaching consumers across all different demographics on television. So we know what's working and not working for these folks. When I think about the baby boomers portion of Generation L, these folks, it's all about the social issues. They've kind of grown up in that environment and recognizing what's happened in the 60s and the 70s, a lot of the social movements. They're reacting to that today. So as you're messaging, any kind of commentary that relates to what's happening in terms of messaging to these folks, it's crucial. They love the smartphone. They're incredibly savvy to that. Why? Because they're tethered to it at work. They live and breathe by this. They're connecting to their colleagues, but also to their family. You want to make sure that social media is part of your media execution. The beauty of these guys is they have incredible amounts of discretionary income, even in a challenging environment. You want to reach them through TV, print, and mobile. I got the message to move along, so I'm going to do this relatively quickly, guys. Sorry. In terms of young adults, these guys, of all the folks who have limited attention span, this is the biggest victim of that in terms of they don't sit still for a minute. And what you want to be able to do with these folks is have multiple creative ad executions across multiple media, so you're consistently hitting them with messaging they get the aha factor, the wow factor. They love funny creative. They love branded entertainment. When you think about the media, online banners. They're online, they're surfing, but it better be rich media. It's got to have a call. That sight, sound, and motion is crucial for these guys. In terms of product placement, they love the association of celebrities and the affiliations that come with that. Somebody's picking up a product or service, they want to be part of that. The tweens portion of JL, these guys are not brand loyal. They don't really care. They never grew up with that loyalty. But if they love something, they will stick with it. And there's a difference there in terms of the love-hate relationship. If they love it, they'll stick with it. If they change their mind or it's no longer cool, they will diss it in an instant. And that's only because they could care less who manufactures, how it's made. It's all about, hey, does it work for me? They're always thinking about the fun stuff in life, whether it's the entertainment world or fashion or style, and they're using technologies to respond and engage with that. And if you think about how they're doing that, online promotion codes, QR codes, these folks that are in their teens and early 20s are much more sophisticated than any one of us in the room, maybe even combined. They will engage, and they're called media mashers. They're working with and consuming TV, mobile, music, online. They're doing all of that media. Okay, I've got to go. But the best media here to reach them is digital infotainment and going through movies, video on demand, and the like. So in summary, Gen L, think about the audiences. Everyone is a lead, everyone in this room. These guys want 800 numbers. These folks are texting. They're tethered to the media through the phone. These guys are using the URLs and everything else that goes sequentially with them. And these folks are tweeting and engaging through social interaction. So sorry to rush through this for 12 minutes or less, and I'm probably at 13. I want to say thank you very much. My name is Brendan Condon. Feel free to give me a shout. I'll be around over here with any Q&A, or you can reach me out through email. Thank you very much, everybody.